What's going on YouTube? Now, first of all, who are the best rappers in the world? Now, first of all, the best hip hop artist is not Eminem, for one thing. Now, what did Eminem have that made him good? Now, we're going to get into this list, but the multi-syllable rhymes or multis, where you rhyme multiple words in every line, are the important thing. And if they can make consistent multis throughout a song, and like Big L had so many multis within one song, he had more multis in half a song than most hip hop artists have in a whole album or even their own career. So Big L went up there. And Eminem ended up coming out there as the influential hip hop artist that basically got people inspired to make multis. So Eminem will never be bigger than Tupac, for one thing, because Eminem, we know for a fact, he has his own music. He has his G Funk production by Dr. Dre with the chopper style, kind of fast paced delivery of the Midwest. And so he kind of represents because, he was currently in Detroit in the hip hop scene there. And then he had basically Dre producing his albums. Now, Tupac Shakur basically had Dre as his producer too, but you got to remember that, he's from New York and then he goes to Los Angeles and he had freestyles in Baltimore, Maryland, where he lived. And so, he had a lot of styles, a lot of versatility, but he had a diaphragm flow. He rhymed from the pit of his stomach, could have any kind of flow with any kind of beat. He could go with a beat better than anybody else. And he was a visionary. He had a lot of this kind of deep vision in his music. He was not trying to conform, so his music wasn't always popular with other people because he was an angry person. He was not always mentally stable, but he was a true artist. And he devoted himself, and it's not just because he died that made him a good artist, because people look at his depth in his music and they realize the lines and stuff that he has really put him up there. And now Notorious B.I.G. was a more laid back partier. He had Puff Daddy making his pop rap beats, but he kind of had a hardcore element, but he did a lot of multis too. Then you have Big L from the Terror Squad. But then we have one guy that I don't know how they would do against, and that is Juice. Now you watch the Rap Olympics when Eminem goes against Juice. There's nobody in the world that would think Eminem even stood a chance in that battle because Eminem got taken apart by Juice. He totally outclassed him. He predicted him, and he exploited Eminem's weaknesses, and Eminem just completely fell down. Now, in the modern day, then you have Serious Jones as a freestyle artist. And now Jin was a good freestyle artist, and Immortal Technique is also really good at multis too. So Immortal Technique is one of those rappers that truly has street appeal because he can put words together very well. And so Immortal Technique and Serious Jones and Iron Solomon, all three are very good artists. But once I saw Immortal Technique going up against Iron Solomon, basically biting lines out of his music, I put him lower in the list, even though he's a very good freestyle artist. Because you will see now, on the other hand, there's a mental health part here. Like Cannabis was very good, but when he went against Disaster, he's kind of choked and started reciting old lines, and so he basically fell when he beat LL Cool J, who is a rap god on the poster. Basically, known for being a very good hip hop artist, except LL Cool J has more of the party oriented music. And we look for multis, we look for people who change their flow within the music, we look for people who can go with the beat well, we look more for people who have versatility and complexity, and they have punchlines. And this is what makes different artists from others, because you'll have people that kind of have semi-written words, and then people who can just spit nonstop all day and come out with different stuff. And so getting signed for music then gets to this issue where a lot of the people signed are not necessarily any good. And so now Eminem did pioneer the art of multis in music. And we know that, Juice stays out of the field because he does not want to look like a hip hop artist. He wants to have a real life and not look like he's out for the stereotypes of hip hop, but he's above it because he's not going out there singing Money Cash Hoes and all this stuff in music videos. He goes into a battle and wins the Rap Olympics. And then every time he battles somebody, he shows his immense talent with words. And so Juice truly gets number one here. And Tupac Shakur goes number two. And Notorious B.I.G. and Big L go 3 and 4 tied together. And Eminem goes 5 because Eminem, you understand, is a very creative, very intelligent, very artsy hip-hop artist. And he has a very versatile flow, but there's elements of where he can have a Bugs Bunny style flow. And so then we get down to artists like Jay-Z and Nas, and they're both, this is where there's different styles. Jay-Z's a club artist, and Nas is a very serious, nasal flow oriented, somewhat monotonous at times, but very deep artist. And so he's very philosophical, whereas Jay-Z is big on putting words together, but he is more commercial. And so Nas won't make music that goes into the clubs, and so he takes apart Jay-Z, just like Cannabis took apart LL Cool J, because the club artists don't stand against the lyricists. And see, the rappers versus lyricists gets into this issue. A lyricist has words they put together that are intense. A rapper has more of the spitting flow and heavy beats and all this stuff, but you have a lot of people that are combined. Like a good artist is both. Like Tupac Shakur had a lot of sick flow with his lyrics. And then he'd go off on tangents and he would start to lose it in some of his music because he got real depressive and angry with the world. And so he was a true artist, just like Eminem kind of had this too. And see, Eminem has grown in his hip hop career because we know he was bashing his mom, angry with the world, he was making homophobic attitudes and all this stuff. And he's realized you don't want to do this and don't want to live like that. And so Eminem's really opened up and he's been a different artist, so he's grown with time. And because he's grown with time, I liked his old multis, and like the Slim Shady and the Marshall Mathers were sick albums. And now his music shows that he's really grown and he's trying to do more versatile stuff and he's trying to be more inspirational, which shows that he has grown and maybe very much, one of the best artists of today. And now, on the other hand, you got to understand that some of these artists, all they do is demean women and talk about getting high and all this stuff, but they don't put words together well. And they'll rhyme one word together or something that sounds to get similar. And they will try to make multis, and a lot of times rappers will drown out, their music with a heavy beat. And then they get into this crunk style or, basically club hits and chanting. And so that becomes a concern we have with artists. Like Lil Jon, the East Side Boys would never, ever stand a chance on the Hip Hop Gods poster for a second because they're club artists. And club artists are forgettable. And this gets down to the issue where Kool Moe Dee went against Busy Bee. And Busy Bee was just going to chant to the audience, and then he didn't know what he was up against. And so Kool Moe Dee pioneered the art of freestyle battling because he basically put words together and took apart Busy Bee, and Busy Bee didn't even see it coming. He didn't even know what to do. And so it showed the lyricist versus the hip-hop artist. And then Kool Moe Dee may sound old school by today's standards, but he's still quite good. And so then you look at people like Busta Rhymes and Talib Kweli, and they have very good fast-paced, medium-paced, slow-paced, versatile flows. And we know Busta Rhymes has this very fast-paced but very rhythmic, fast-paced, raga style kind of, it's reggae-inspired hip-hop. And KRS-One does a good job too. So, you look at some of these people in music, but a lot of artists have one or two hits and then they're forgotten. And the people that are truly the good artists have just about everything that's a classic. And you get the worst song from a good artist album that's still better than the best song in a crappy artist album. In fact, there's a lot of times when you look at a lot of the modern music, it just doesn't compare. And so this is where we know for a fact that Tupac Shakur brought this vision and understanding. He talked about the crack cocaine outbreak. He had a mom addicted to drugs, so he had a very touchy attitude about urban violence and stuff. And so he spoke his mind. And when he was in Tupacalypse Now, he was angry with the world. He was making his debut, talking about how dangerous the system was and how, you had all these people screwed over by the system. And he was saying, you throw me in a prison, that'll be the problem for the warden. I'll create a gang and everything against him. He was showing, don't you mess with me. And then he started to grow up in his music and started to expand. And then he changed his attitudes one album from another. He was like a chameleon. And Notorious B.I.G. started out basically with Ready to Die. And then he had Life After Death. But then he got shot. And so they brought some of the overproduced new stuff that was in the junkyard. So he never really got to peak out. But he was more of the basic rhythmic, delivery-oriented artist. Now, in terms of flow, Bone Thugs and Harmony have the sickest flow of any rapper alive. Bone Thugs and Harmony have a truly rhythmic, fast-paced flow. There's nobody other than Bone Thugs and Harmony and Twista and basically Tech Nine that have this a good fast-paced delivery, because a lot of times when people go fast, they fall. And some people will try and go fast and then they lose their flow in delivery because they lose their sense of rhythm and they're just saying words fast. And so this is where you understand Busta Rhymes has his raga style and is able to chant it in the right way with his rhythm to make his delivery work with a beat. And so Busta Rhymes sometimes, he'll go out there and have a fast pace and he'll go slow, then he'll change his flow in the music. So Busta Rhymes becomes a very interesting artist to listen to. And honestly, I like his old school stuff when he went fast. I don't like his club hits. And I don't think his old school stuff ever gets boring or old. Because to me, that's what I prefer to listen to. And so, the Wu-Tang, well, we know there's a lot of good artists there. Like Raekwon is a very, very good artist in Wu-Tang. Method Man is good. GZA is very good too. And, ODB had very dirty, but, he was a loose cannon shock value kind of person too. And he had, they were all legends because Wu-Tang put words together quite well. But, they would oftentimes fall into the attitude singing about Shaolin and all this stuff. And, this is where they're good, but they're not the best artists. But they're very good and definitely legends, but there's only like 5 spots for the best artists. Because you realize Tupac Shakur, Notorious B.I.G., Juice, Eminem, and Big L go in that list because Big L spit multis at a fast pace in his freestyles. And so when you see him with Tupac in that deadly combination, you realize these were people that make unreproducible items. And they truly make unreproducible commodities because when you put those two together, they later got shot. And that was a priceless song. And that was priceless music that nobody can ever recreate or even come close to making. And these were two artists that were luckily in the same room at the same time to make this kind of fire. And then on the other hand, you have Lil Wayne, Lil Jon, the East Side Boys, and they're all smoking up in there, just trying to make a club hit. And there is no comparison between Big L and Lil Wayne. There is no comparison between Big Pun and Fat Joe. And there's no comparison between Big L and Big Pun. And there's no comparison between basically Tupac or Big L versus the new artists. And even like Eminem. Eminem will never be a Tupac. He is not bigger than Tupac. Do not ever think he's bigger than Tupac. He may be very good, but Tupac has a lot of stuff anybody knows about music knows that Tupac Shakur will always be just about number one. Now, maybe Juice gets a little higher because he's so good at freestyling and putting words together. But this is where Tupac Shakur was the true gangster. And he was a true gangster that hated the gangster stuff. And he would make all of this music bashing on people who wanted to be gangsters because he couldn't stand that lifestyle and couldn't stand living in it. And so he was talking about having friends that were thugs and they showed him love and all this stuff and how it was his upbringing and stuff that he hated and did not want to see people in the projects getting into violence. And so he was a true artist. And then you see some dipshit like Vanilla Ice that goes around talking about how he's hardcore. And basically that's the concern you have about a lot of hip-hop artists because they value the wrong attitudes in their music because they don't have a lot of good ideas, so they start turning around and trying to put violent stuff and a lot more of this angry kind of attitude without an idea. Eminem was angry with the world because he had a bad upbringing and a worthless mom and all this stuff at the time, so he felt, that he had been screwed over and he had attitudes and he had mental issues too. But the problem was, he grew because he lost his ability to do music and he had to convince himself how to do it again. So, this is where when we look at the best hip-hop artists, the multis and the versatility of an artist, and especially their complexity, and when you look at their lyrics and punchlines and how much diverse stuff they can use, you realize who's best and who is not.